The studio lights blazed down, cameras humming softly, and an expectant hush filled the air. Everyone knew this interview would be intense, but no one was prepared for what was about to unfold. The journalist, a man known for his sharp tongue and smug superiority, leaned back in his chair with an air of disdain. He believed this would be just another opportunity to humiliate a guest, to corner them with tricky questions, and to parade his own intelligence before a national audience. But what he didn't know was that J.D. Vance was not the kind of man who would be rattled. The opening question came like a jab, quick and condescending. "Mr. Vance," the journalist said, lips curled into a smirk, "some critics say that your story of rising from poverty is exaggerated, maybe even romanticized. Do you honestly expect educated people to believe that your so-called hillbilly upbringing has any place in shaping real political decisions?" The audience chuckled nervously. The tone wasn't just skeptical, it was dismissive. It was as if the man's childhood, his mother's struggles with addiction, the chaos of growing up in broken homes were nothing but cheap anecdotes for a book. For a split second there was silence. Cameras zoomed in, waiting for a defensive reaction, but JD didn't flinch. He folded his hands calmly, his eyes steady, and when he spoke, his voice carried not anger but weight. "I didn't write my story to impress the educated elite," JD said slowly, each word deliberate. "I wrote it because millions of families live that reality every single day. And while some may laugh at it, dismiss it, or call it romanticized, I can assure you, there was nothing romantic about watching my mother overdose, nothing exaggerated about being raised by grandparents who worked themselves to the bone, and nothing fake about the fear that poverty instills in a child. You may call it unimportant, but for families struggling in forgotten towns across America, it is important. It's everything." The room fell still. The journalist shifted in his chair, but JD wasn't finished. He leaned forward, his voice gaining intensity though still calm. "The problem with conversations like this is that too many people want to believe the struggles of ordinary Americans don't matter unless they fit into neat statistics or polished talking points. But the truth is, policy without empathy is meaningless, and leadership without understanding real pain is dangerous." For the first time, the journalist's grin faltered. He tried to interrupt, but JD pressed on, his words now flowing with a kind of raw, unfiltered honesty that cut deeper than any rehearsed talking point ever could. He spoke of families in Appalachia, of veterans returning home broken and ignored, of children slipping through cracks because nobody thought their lives were important enough to pay attention to. "I'm not here to impress you," he said, gesturing gently toward the journalist. "I'm here to speak for people who don't get a seat at this table, people who don't have studio lights shining on them or a platform to defend their dignity. I carry their voices because I was one of them, and if that makes you uncomfortable, then maybe it should." The studio audience, usually instructed to remain quiet, erupted into spontaneous applause. Even the camera operators, hardened by years of watching political theater, exchanged glances of astonishment. The journalist cleared his throat, visibly rattled. He muttered something about objectivity and facts, but his voice cracked, betraying his unease. For the first time in his career, he wasn't the one in control. JD didn't gloat, he didn't smirk or relish the moment of victory. Instead, he let the silence speak for him, and then, in a softer voice, he concluded. "You asked me if my upbringing matters. It does, because it taught me resilience. It taught me compassion. It taught me that no matter how far you fall, there's always hope to climb back up. That's not just my story, it's the story of America itself, and if we forget that, we lose the very soul of this country." When the interview ended, the journalist's face was pale, his usual arrogance replaced by something resembling humility or perhaps defeat. The audience rose to its feet in a standing ovation. The clip would later go viral, shared across platforms, sparking debates not about politics but about empathy, dignity, and the forgotten voices of ordinary people. For days, people talked about that moment, not because J.D. Vance won a debate, but because he reminded everyone that behind every statistic is a human being. Behind every policy is a family, and behind every headline is a story that deserves to be told with honesty and compassion. In the end, the most powerful part wasn't that JD silenced an arrogant journalist, it was that he gave a voice to those who had been silenced for far too long. And in that studio, under the glaring lights, he reminded the world of a truth that left everyone speechless. Dignity is not reserved for the powerful, it belongs to us all.